Hello and welcome back to the neighborhood. My name is Andrew, and in this video I want to talk about Final Fantasy VII Remake. I'm going to cover the development of this ambitious project, my opinion on this entry in the series, and share whether or not I think this is a good place for you to start your journey with Final Fantasy VII specifically, and the Final Fantasy series as a whole. With all that being said, let's get into it. Final Fantasy VII Remake is a game that reimagines the classic 1997 PlayStation game Final Fantasy VII. It's the first entry in a planned trilogy of games that will cover the entire story of the original game. It was developed by Square Enix, with several key staff members from the original game returning. It features a new action-based combat system that combines real-time and strategic elements, as well as an expanded and updated story that adds new characters and events. The development history of Final Fantasy VII Remake is a long and complex one, spanning over 2 decades and multiple platforms. The idea to remake Final Fantasy VII was first conceived around the time of the compilation of Final Fantasy VII, a series of spin-off games and media that expanded the original game's story and world. Tetsuya Nomura, the character designer and original story writer of Final Fantasy VII, planned the remake as the 5th and final entry of the compilation. But he got pulled away by other projects and the idea was put on hold. In 2005, Square Enix showed a technical demo for the PlayStation 3 that recreated the opening sequence of Final Fantasy VII with improved graphics. This sparked fan demand and speculation for a potential remake, but Square repeatedly denied any plans for one. In 2015, at Sony's E3 press conference, the remake was officially announced, with Nomura as the director. The remake was revealed to be the first in a planned trilogy of games that would cover the entire story of the original, with the first game focusing on the events of Midgar. In 2017, Square Enix decided to move the development in-house, after previously outsourcing it to CyberConnect, a studio known for the Naruto games. This was done in order for Square to have more control over the project. In 2019, a new trailer for the remake was released, showing the updated gameplay, graphics, and voice acting. The combat was changed from a turn-based system to a real-time action system with strategic elements and an active time battle (ATB) gauge. The graphics were powered by Unreal Engine 4, and the voice acting was recast with new actors. In 2020, the remake was released for PlayStation 4 on April 10th, after a 1-month delay due to production issues. It received positive reviews from critics and fans, who praised its graphics, gameplay, music, and narrative. In 2021, an enhanced version of the remake called Final Fantasy VII Remake Integrate was released for PlayStation 5 and Windows. It added more features such as improved performance, loading, and difficulty options. Also, a photo mode, and a new DLC episode featuring Yuffie, a character who was not playable in the original game. Almost as soon as this video goes live, the second game in the trilogy, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, will be out. It will continue the story of Remake, following with the characters as they leave Midgar and explore the larger world. Before I talk about whether or not Final Fantasy VII Remake is a good entry point or not, I want to share my personal thoughts on the game. I really like it. My experience with Final Fantasy is limited. I played some of the earlier games here and there when I was growing up, but the first one I played from start to finish was 15. After that, it was Remake. And I've most recently played 16, which I really enjoyed. I'm saying all this to give an idea of the type of fan I am. I'm a recent one. I'll break up my thoughts about Final Fantasy VII Remake into 2 categories, the good and the bad. And because I'm the kind of person who likes to eat their vegetables first to get them out of the way, let's start with the bad. The biggest knock I have against Remake is the bloat. Because this title only covers the Midgar section of the original game, Square felt the need to add in some very obvious padding. This comes in the form of mediocre side quests, backtracking missions, and unnecessary tedium when progressing through certain parts of the game. I'm looking at you, crane hand, mini-game, puzzles. To me, this really hurts the overall experience. I would have preferred a more linear and shorter game without all the unnecessary padding. The other negative I have also has some positives tied to it as well. This game is extremely exaggerated in a way that reminds me of watching anime, and for the most part, I love that about it. The wacky characters and silly situations that our party finds themselves in give this game its charm. What I don't like is the overuse of moaning and grunting to attempt to convey emotion.
That flower you gave me the other night, that was from Aerith, wasn't it?
It isn't something that bothers me when it's done in moderation, but in Final Fantasy VII Remake, it's nearly constant. I'm hopeful that as I'm probably currently enjoying Rebirth right now, that is something they have toned down. Now let's talk about the good. I'll reiterate that the over-the-top anime-ness of this game is actually something I like, aside from the moans. Along with that, pretty much everything else about this experience is fantastic. The music is great, the visuals are great, the audio design is near perfect, the story and characters are really enjoyable, but the heart and soul of this game is the combat. I absolutely love the combat. The mixture of action and turn-based works so well. It can be frustrating if you don't take the time to learn it and just attempt to brute force your way through fights. But if you sink into the ways that the different elements interact with each other and how each of your party members excel at certain areas of the battle, it is one of the most fun and satisfying combat systems in any game I have ever played. All that being said, is this a good place to jump into Final Fantasy VII, or even the series as a whole? Something I haven't addressed yet is that this is not a one-to-one remake of a classic video game. This game toys with the concept of what it means to be a remake. It is telling the story of the original game, but it is also telling a new story along with that. Because of this, I had to watch a bunch of YouTube videos after finishing the game to try and wrap my head around the ending. You see, when I talked about my previous Final Fantasy experience, I did not mention Final Fantasy VII. I played Remake anticipating that I would get to experience one of the most famous games of all time in the best and most modern way possible. While this is sort of the case, it also isn't. So, is this the best place to jump in? Probably not if you care about the larger Final Fantasy VII lore as a whole, but as far as just wanting to play an extremely fun game with an engaging story and cool setting, it's absolutely worth jumping in. Just know that, like me, you might be doing some additional research to fill in the blanks when it comes to the story. I would give Final Fantasy VII Remake a B. I absolutely love the world, characters, and especially the combat system, but the bloat and overuse of grunts and moans brings the grade down a little bit. I hope that this is addressed in Rebirth, because if it is, it could become one of my favorite games. What do you think of Final Fantasy VII Remake? Do you agree with me about whether or not it should be where you jump into the series? Why or why not? Let me know in the comments. If you want to hear a full 2-hour discussion about Remake, go check out our podcast where we got way more in depth about the game. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like and subscribe to the channel for more. That's all I've got for this one, so I'll leave you with a reminder to stay friendly, gamers.